Welcome to episode 9 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Dagger of the Mind.
In this week's episode, an escaped inmate from a penal colony causes concern when he makes allegations of improper behaviour by the colony's esteemed director. While Kirk investigates in person, Spock goes to extraordinary lengths to determine the truth of the matter and discover what dangers his captain can expect to encounter.
Don't you remember? The science lab Christmas party?
Yes, I remember.
You dropped
Yes,
him?
yes, I remember.
Evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. How are you?
I'm okay. Do you remember that time at the Christmas party when you done that thing?
Let's not talk about that on the radio.
Do you remember?
Of course not.
Not surprised. The amount of drink you had.
Let's just move on. I've already indicated subtly, so...
I had a camera, had my phone on me. One day.
This was a good episode.
Instagram, you say we have?
A good episode.
Yeah, it was okay. I thought that there were similarities to what our little girls made of the Andrea episode. There are quite a few similarities, actually, we'll get to. But I thought they were rehashing an idea again.
Yeah, there were certainly some thematic similarities, I would agree with you.
And we're only talking, 2 episodes ago?
Well, who knows what order they were filmed in now. He won't let me tell people.
No. So yeah, it was okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was fine. It was adequate.
Perfectly acceptable.
Will we begin?
We may as well.
Crack on.
Not in the bridge for once.
No, where are we?
In the transporter room.
We are indeed. There's a close-up of a package telling us that it is infrasensory drugs that are being sent to whom?
Dr. Tristan Adams on the Tantalus penal colony.
Is it whom or who? Sent to whom? Sent to who?
To who?
To who? I know.
For whom the bell tolls.
Yes, the old penal colony. I do like a good penal colony.
Yes, they're always fun. We've got a low-budget replacement for Scotty here.
Yeah.
Literally a low-budget replacement for Scotty. The actor was cheaper.
So where is Scotty?
He's not in this episode.
Why not?
Cheaper.
Too expensive?
Yes, literally too expensive because there's a small role in this particular episode.
And he demanded big bucks.
We've seen this before with Uhura not being used. They used Farrell instead because he's cheaper.
You might not know this, but are you saying then they're paid on a show-by-show basis? They don't have a contract for the season? Or
correct.
Huh.
If they're not used, they don't get paid.
That's not great, is it?
Well, it's not ideal, but that's what they negotiated, obviously. I don't know how much leverage they had, to be honest, but yeah, the idea... It's a fact that Scotty wasn't used in this episode because it was cheaper to use the other guy for his small...
I'm not happy about that
part. No, you can pretend it was Scotty if you want. He still won't get paid.
Okay. The drugs we saw were part of a larger haul that a couple of red shirts are having trouble beaming down just as Kirk enters.
Oh, it's the last thing you want. You're making an arse of things and your boss shows up.
Yes. We'll get to in a few moments. It's I like how Kirk manages him, how he handles it. But anyway, he is a little amused as he knows what the issue is and how to resolve it. What is the issue?
The colony's shields are still up, so they can't beam anything through shields.
Yeah, I think it's extra security precautions because of the fact that it's a
penal colony.
Yeah. So there's extra permissions that have to be granted by the receiver first. Now, is this not always the case then? You have to communicate and ask to beam something down.
You can never beam through shields, so the shields had to be dropped so they could beam things down.
Okay. This gets sorted and Kirk is told that there is a research item inbound that is to go to the Bureau of Penology in Stockholm. So, that's Stockholm, Earth.
It says North Eurasia.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have countries anymore, obviously, so it's just the landmass that it's on that they list it by.
So do they go back to Earth during this 5-year mission?
I don't think the Enterprise will, but the Enterprise might take it to a station and then a different ship will take it on to the next stage of its journey.
This gets sent up and we see it is confidential, not to be opened. Kirk leaves and what happens?
Well, on his way out, he explains to the red shirt where he went wrong and recommends he revises his instructions for dealing with penal colonies.
Yes, he he makes his point, but not in a... I don't know. He softens the blow. He has a smile on his face, but he makes it clear that the chap isn't... I think it's... is it Berkeley?
Yeah, I think he's still going to feel like he was chastised here.
Yes.
Even though from Kirk's point of view, he was fairly light-handed with it. I think from Berkeley's point of view, he's going to feel like he's been embarrassed.
That's my point. It was well done. That's how you do it.
Kirk makes the point that before he goes and does this additional research, he should deal with the box.
So I think Kirk leaves, Berkeley has turned around to deal with the box, and we see a man in an oxygen mask sneak out of the aforementioned box, and he knocks out Berkeley.
Yes, with a chop to the neck.
Yep, just before the credits roll. Now, as this character was creeping out, this is the first time we as viewers see him, and I was struck by the similarity to another very famous sitcom actor.
Were you?
Yeah.
Who?
Well, I could tell you, but I think what we should do is ask the listeners to have a guess here. The best way to do this is either to watch the episode, or if you go onto the IMDb page for this episode, I think it's the first image you see is of this chap, and I think that's an image which represents who I'm talking about very well. If anyone can guess, there will be no prize.
It's a very sort of subjective question. Who do you think Gerry thinks this guy looks like?
That's it, exactly. How can people give us the answer? How can people guess?
So they can send it by owl, or more traditionally by social media.
What's their social media? What's the names of these channels?
Well, the easiest way would be to go to our website, StarTrekPodcast.com. There'll be a post up there for whatever this episode's called, Dagger of the Mind. And you could put it in the comments there, or you could get us on Twitter, or Facebook, or Instagram. On all of those, we're at Trek Podcast. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Not many other options.
I really was. I thought straight away, it might be because I have been binging on this particular show recently, but yeah, I think people get it out there. You maybe not, because you don't.
I've not seen the show that you're talking about.
But let's see if I'm right or not.
Have many folk watched it?
Oh, I'd say there's been one or two.
Okay.
That's the only clue they're getting.
That's it. The guy does look particularly anxious and sweaty.
He does, yeah.
But we don't get to linger because the credits roll.
And then we have the captain's log 2715.1, and we hear that after the exchange they departed without stopping off.
We should point out that 2715 is not the year 2715.
Is it not?
The year's about 2260 something.
Okay, what is it? And stardate?
It's just the stardate, and they don't really get these sorted out properly for some time.
Okay. Up to the bridge for the first time, Kirk muses to McCoy that he would like to have met Dr. Adams. And we find out that Adams has instigated a lot of changes in penal colonies.
Yeah, McCoy's got more of a pacifistic approach. I think he doesn't like people being in cages.
Yes.
Generally.
And who is it? Someone says, it just shows you that it's not a modern phenomenon, that they're saying that they're like holiday resorts now. And this is the typical sort of, especially right-to-wing rhetoric we hear, that prisons are too lenient and they're like holiday camps these days. They've all got PlayStations and Xboxes and Game Boys. It's
Kirk that says this, but he doesn't say it in a way that he's critical. He's saying to McCoy, it's okay, they're like resorts. It's not, it's awful. It's too easy. He's saying it's not as barbaric as it might have been back in the 20th century.
Ahura, interrupt. We've not seen her for a while, really. She doesn't have
She's too expensive.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. She interrupts with an urgent communication from Tantalus. What's the message here?
They've lost a potentially violent inmate. Sorry.
Not great.
No.
Down in the transporter room, there's a quick shot of the anxious inmate looking to hide somewhere.
He's stolen the transporter crewman's red overalls. At this point, he's now wearing those.
The communication continues, explaining that the box beamed up, the one bound for Stockholm, may have contained this character. So what does Kirk do?
Well, before Kirk does anything, the message starts to repeat, so it sounds like it's been just sent out as an automated recording.
That's all you need.
Nobody's bothered to actually get on the speaker and say, here's the problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, Kirk sets a security alert.
What level?
Probably 3 or something.
It was level 3.
Yeah.
Again, how high did they go?
As high as it's relevant to the story.
Okay.
The 3 sounds high, yes.
No, it sounds quite low on a scale of 1 to 10.
On a scale of 1 to 100, it's really low. It's
Yeah.
like we're not really fussed.
Scale of 1 to 5, it's...
In the middle.
Yeah.
Scale of 1 to 3, it's really high.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know. But I'd say 3 is above neutral.
And it is broadcast shipwide.
Of course, it'd be really unfortunate if we just do it half the ship. What if he's in the other half?
But it might just be for senior management.
Pick them out, tell them to worry.
Well, in fairness, yeah. Sometimes you don't want
might
to
not,
panic the rest of people.
Fair enough, yes.
At this we see the inmate. He's been spotted on deck 14 and somewhat random lets them know about this. So deck 14 is where we head.
Yes. Security officers and everything come out, but he's able to overpower one of those.
Takes his weapon off him and runs off.
Yes.
Which causes Spock to widen the search area.
Up on the bridge, Kirk tries to get back in touch with Tantalus and gets Dr. Adams himself.
Yeah, I think he confirms that the inmate is indeed on board.
Yes, and to watch out because not only is he extremely violent, he's also quite clever.
Yeah, I think he's quite apologetic. Adams tells him to take all precautions.
Yes, Kirk, I like this sort of false alarm here. So Kirk and McCoy get a start as a security officer comes out the turbo lift.
Yes.
Then Spock notes to McCoy the irony in humans celebrating violence for many, many centuries, but then imprisoning people who employ it privately. Well, to be fair, state-sponsored violence has always been approved of.
Indeed.
In certain places.
Yes, this is there's a customary back and forth about different traditions and...
The barbaric human behaviour.
Yeah.
Yeah, traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a shot at people in the 20th century, showing how far people have come now, that McCoy can look back and be a bit embarrassed by how humans used to be.
And after this happens, we see the inmate storm in and knocks out one of the guards.
Yeah, McCoy is on the bridge and doesn't care that there's a man needing treatment.
No, why should he?
He'll be fine. It was just a blow to the head, he'll get up in a minute.
The chap demands to know who the captain is before further demanding asylum and a promise that they won't take him back to the colony. That's not really how it works. Don't break out of prison and
demand not to go back. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Kirk, to be fair, makes that point himself. He identifies himself as the captain, and then after finding out that the man's name is Van Gelder, which he has difficulty spitting out.
So did you, or so did you earlier. You kept calling him Brown to me.
No, I called him Van Gerber, and I kept calling Adams Brown. I don't know why, and my notes
Okay.
are still littered with it.
Brown was he was the assistant in...
What Little Girls Made Of?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's from there.
It will be.
Anyway, yes.
I think this Van Gelder, is it Gelder? Gelding?
Van Gelder.
Yeah, Van Gelder. He threatens to disable the Enterprise if they try and return him,
Yeah.
forcing Spock to do something.
Well, yes. Moves around behind him, and as he's distracted, Kirk kicks his weapon away, and Spock disables him.
How?
Nerve pinch.
Oh.
Brutal.
I wonder
It's
if
as effective as the chop.
how many kids do you think, when these episodes were broadcast, used to try this in the playground and ended up hurting each other?
I don't think anyone hurt anyone with a fake nerve pinch.
No, real net. You would grab someone by the traps. That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could be sore. Yeah,
Just a shot to the jugular.
could try that as well.
Anyway, Kirk orders that the man, Van Gelder, be taken to sickbay, and he turns the ship around. They're heading back to Tantalus. Tantalising, you might say.
You might say that.
You wouldn't?
No.
Okay.
Down in sickbay, McCoy admits to Kirk that they can't work out exactly what Van Gelder's condition is, but he would like some time to study him, as he has been making partially lucid, outlandish claims that have a ring of truth about them.
That's a very subjective view.
Yeah.
He says the Earth is flat. What?
Kirk's not interested.
No, Kirk doesn't care. He's not inclined at all to keep Van Gelder on board the ship.
Yeah. And this seems to rile the prisoner, as he claims they are washing their hands of him before, in some anguish, he opens up.
What did you say your name was?
My name? My name is... Simon. Van Gelder. I was the director. Director. At the Tantalus colony.
See what I mean?
I was a graduate of... I was assistant to... I knew. But they've erased it.
Erased?
Edited. Adjusted. Subverted me. But I won't forget! I won't forget! You're so blind ignorant. You believe I belong back there, don't you? Dead or alive? Well, I won't let you take me back. I'm not going. I'll die first. You hear? I'm not going. No! No! No!
McCoy required there to sedate him.
He what? What was indeed, yes.
You coming down with it?
I think it's contagious, yeah.
Oh dear.
Quite liked his performance. It was a bit silly, but fun.
It reminded me a lot of Christopher Lloyd in, I think, maybe The Addams Family or one or two of his other roles where he's got this sort of almost rubber-faced thing going on, and the extreme but restrained.
But?
It's the extreme but restrained, you know, it's outlandish but it's also controlled.
Sure.
I think he would maybe have done a good job with that part.
He would have, in fact. I could see Christopher Lloyd in some of the Star Trek vehicles, without a doubt. I don't mean the Enterprise.
He was in Star Trek.
Oh, was he?
Well, we've not come to it yet.
Not the original series.
One of the movies.
Okay. Well, there you go. Back up on the bridge, we have Spock, and after telling Kirk that they are under an hour from Tantalus, he is asked what is so fascinating, and reveals that from an ID tape, it appears that Dr. Van Gelder was telling the truth.
That is a surprise.
I think Kirk asks when he was sent there.
6 months ago he was assigned there as Adam's assistant.
Ah.
Oh, drama.
A twist here. So, Kirk communicates down to an apparently concerned Adams, who does indeed confirm that Van Gelder was doing experimental work with a beam. Not a gymnastics beam, I don't think.
No. A ray.
That, and I like this terminology, that could rehabilitate incorrigibles.
Need some of that around here.
Oh, there's so many incorrigibles in Glasgow, drinking their buckfast and roaming the streets. A good rehabilitation of them would be what's required.
Waving their flags.
Yeah. Anyway, Van Gelder apparently felt obligated to try this beam on himself first. That doesn't sound plausible.
Well, that's what McCoy says. Doesn't ring true.
No, I'll try this myself. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's this sort of thing. He's so noble, he wouldn't try anything on the inmates without doing it to himself. That makes no sense.
No.
Oh, I'll just lobotomise myself.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Nonsense.
Kirk tries once again to explain to McCoy that things on penal colonies aren't the way he remembers. They're nice, decent, clean places now. Yeah,
I think Adams is on hold at this point.
Yes, he is, and Spock steps into the debate.
Does he? Is this before Kirk reels off Adams's CV, his resume?
No, that's how he's explaining to McCoy about them being clean and decent. That's part of it. Is Adams is a highly respected doctor, a leader in his field, almost similar to the last Dr. Colby.
Mm-hmm, indeed.
Spock's suggestion is that they simply ask Adams if he wants Van Gelder back.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of thinking by Spock here.
It might be instructive.
So Kirk attempts to ask him, but before he can, Adams asks for Van Gelder to be dropped off somewhere better, obviously for his own good.
Yes, but despite the fact McCoy insists that Adams would know there are no superior facilities to this.
Yeah, and furthermore, he has his doubts about what is happening on Tantalus, or I think his doubts have now grown.
Yes, and he won't let Kirk brush him off.
No, I like this. He's got a bit of integrity about him here, certainly for his profession. So he wants Kirk to look into this a little bit more, and Kirk doesn't seem too keen. So what McCoy says is that he will log this in his records, therefore forcing Kirk to respond in kind.
Yes, an administrative step that forces Kirk's hand.
And again, I think Kirk's not necessarily annoyed. There's a bit of a smirk behind his eyes, and I think he appreciates that
He's been outplayed.
he's been outmanoeuvred, yeah.
And he respects McCoy, so it's not like he's going to take umbrage at this. It wouldn't be his decision, but he appreciates that the rules give McCoy this option.
Kirk gets back onto communications with Adams and apologises before explaining that he is obliged to investigate this matter further. And Adams, I mean, in fairness to him, he appears to be more than happy to do anything he can to help Kirk.
There's another throwback, though, to what our little girl's made of when he asks Kirk to come with as few people as possible.
Yeah, that's always suspicious, isn't it? Come yourself, don't bring anything and don't bring any weapons.
You'd think Kirk might have learned from the previous occasion.
Nah.
Let's take a random member of the medical team and me, and we'll just go ourselves.
This show, as we know, is very episodic. Nothing. They don't learn anything at the end of each reset.
They take no knowledge from their past adventures. McCoy is asked by Kirk to assign somebody with psychiatric experience.
No, well, it's psychiatric and penology experience. A double dunter. Someone
who's a penal specialist.
And he smirks. Again, this is him trying to remanoeuvre into into a position of power over McCoy, because he thinks that he's asking him to do something that he can't. There won't be anyone with those dual skills.
No.
Yeah. So I am enjoying this relationship develop and mature. And I think McCoy appreciates what Kirk's done as well. You see him with a little smirk. He knows.
Yeah, it's a little bit of professional tit for tat.
Indeed. Captain's log.
Yes, Kirk notes that they're now back at Tantalus and refers to his previous log where he said he'd not been able to meet Adams, and now he's going to get to do so, but he would have preferred other circumstances. That's what you say at funerals.
Yeah.
In fact, it's the only thing that you're allowed to say at a funeral, technically.
Well,
it's nice to see you. I wish it had been under other circumstances.
They had a good innings, you're allowed to say that. If they did.
If they know what cricket is, yes.
Yeah. Even if you don't, we say it in Scotland and no one knows anything about cricket.
Yeah, I suppose. It's how they would have wanted to go, and you can't say that.
No.
Unless you know exactly what happened and it was.
Mm-hmm. At least they're at peace now. You can sometimes say that.
I'm sorry for your loss. You can say that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're talking directly to the family members, obviously, if you're just talking to some other guy who is there because...
Yes, I suppose. And the one thing that you shouldn't say, but everyone does, is, how you doing?
Yeah.
How you coping? No, terribly.
Mm-hmm.
Or, fine, didn't really care.
Yeah.
Which undermines the entire event.
Okay, are we finished with funeral etiquette?
No, if anyone's got any more, please. We'll move on. We'll leave them with the one question to deal with.
Yeah, certainly don't ask if he wears size. I'm sure Columbo done that a few times.
Yeah, well, he was the master of inappropriate funeral behaviour, wasn't he?
What size of shoes did he wear?
Yes. Did he have any strange meetings in the last few weeks?
Back up in the bridge.
McCoy's up on the main view screen.
He is doing a bit of Skyping.
They normally use the smaller screens for that. It's obviously something important.
That's where the budget went.
I feel like he's hacked in here. So I'm going to use the big screen. I'm going to speak to him on the big screen.
Sorry, Scotty, can't employ you this week. We're using the big screen. Anyway.
We see an agitated Van Gelder behind him, don't we? Or at least McCoy tells us that he's agitated.
Violently agitated by the looks of it. And Kirk queries if he still wants to keep him in that state. But Spock again jumps in and says that they should.
Yes. McCoy clearly wants Van Gelder kept on the Enterprise for now.
Mm-hmm. And he appears happy to let Kirk know that he has met his challenge and has assigned a Dr. Noel, or Noel. How are we saying this? Noel or Noel?
Noel, I think. Or maybe no, it doesn't really matter.
Dr. Noel to accompany him, as this person has the requisite qualifications.
Yes, they have a background in rehabilitative theory.
Looks ideal. Sounds ideal.
Down in the transporter room,
Spock and Kirk arrive.
And Kirk is dismayed to realise that he recognises the assistant.
I'm not sure if dismayed is a word. He's surprised. He's maybe a little taken aback. But I have to say that I would not be dismayed to be going in some sort of mission with Dr. Karen Noel.
Yes, but Kirk seems to be aware of her expertise in penal matters.
Yes, that's... I think there was a little bit of tension there, or there has been tension.
The impression I get is their previous encounter perhaps did not end well.
Well, I mean, we've all been there. It never does. It rarely, sometimes does. Sometimes
Perhaps
doesn't.
one of them has embarrassed themselves in front of the other.
Yeah, we should say that she is a charming younger woman. I would say near Andrea quality
What do you mean by quality?
in terms of her looks.
She's certainly an attractive young lady.
She's very attractive, yeah. I mean, I can't speak for her. Well, I can because later on she talks a lot of old nonsense, so she's not that qualified. But she's...
Oh, no, I think she is meant to be qualified.
No, she starts taking this... No, we'll get to that. Yeah, she's meant to be qualified, but, I mean...
She's done the exams.
She might have done the exams, yeah.
But I think...
Her
we'll come to this, but I don't think she's unqualified. I think she is influenced by an idol.
Yes.
Unnecessarily.
She's not professional.
Well, you could say that.
I mean, plenty of people... There's plenty of drivers who are qualified. They're terrible drivers.
Okay, well, we'll address this later on.
We will. And I'm not finished here yet. She reminded me of a young Gina Davis crossed with Rachel McAdams. I'm not sure if it's the mouth or the cheekbones.
I can see Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, but and Gina Davis, you need to. You might not have watched a lot of her earlier movies, so but
if they're in black and white, I definitely.
They're not black and white, but if you go back to Transylvania 1-5 or something like that, that's or Earth Girls Are Easy. She's in that. I thought. No, and one of my favourite movies, Fletch.
Right, yeah. I've not seen that either.
Okay, so she does. That's what she looks a little bit like. Anyway,
she certainly has a bit of an attitude. She's got a bit of spunkiness about her, in the least inappropriate sense. You can say spunkiness, moxie. Can I say moxie?
Yeah,
she has moxie.
Okay,
you know, she's got a little bit of attitude's probably the right word. She's a little bit of spirit to her.
Yes, there's a few scenes later which I liked. There's one in particular that we'll get to. Her response was fantastic.
She's not a sort of blank slate. She's got a bit of personality.
Yeah, she's not a pushover, but again, there's a sort of contradiction there because, you know, later on she seems very easily influenced by someone else.
She's influenced by certain things, yeah. But she has opinions.
She does.
She's this victim, I would say, of some very lazy naming. The girl from the Christmas party gets called Dr. Noel. Noel.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit James Bond, isn't it?
Very on the nose. Well, James Bond did it in England. They called Dr. Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas Jones, was she?
Denise Richards.
Yeah.
Anyway.
James Bond has got a tradition of terrible naming, and it's deliberate, though. This one was just lazy, I think. Yeah. Or do you think it's meant to be cheeky or no? It's just not very good.
It's all right.
I mean, a lot of the names in this one actually are a few of the names that they use are not the most subtle.
Is that why you call everyone Brown?
I just call them all Brown to kind of blank it out. I think I've had my memory affected in some way. Stared at the screen at the wrong moment.
Yeah, anyway, let's get back on track. Yeah, there's the little bit between them about the Christmas party that we heard at the intro.
Kirk makes an excuse to go and speak to Spock because he's very displeased. So whatever happened at Christmas is something that Kirk's not happy about. He tells Spock to tell McCoy, who he presumes knows this story.
I like the look on Spock and Noel's face as well. They were enjoying Kirk's uncomfortableness.
Discomfort.
That's what I said.
Yes. Yeah, McCoy is to get the message that this had better be...
Is uncomfortable not a word? It should be.
Uncomfortableness?
Yeah.
No, it's discomfort.
Yeah, I know discomfort's a word, but I think you can also say uncomfortableness. I think that's technically correct.
Someone can write in and tell us. I don't...
Like hung and hanged. Hanged doesn't sound right, but it's correct.
Okay. Well, you would say hanged about somebody who was hanged.
Yeah. You wouldn't necessarily say someone was hanged in the modern sense.
You wouldn't certainly say you hanged a picture on the wall.
Well hanged.
Just hung.
Right, where were we?
McCoy's to get the message that this better not be what Kirk thinks it is.
Okay. They both beam down.
Yes, they arrive at the penal colony.
She is still playing with him by stating that he can call her Helen. But as he starts to talk about the right time, the right place for that type of familiarity, there is a quake, or it seems to be like a quake, and they end up in each other's arms with a look of worry in their face. What's happening here?
They've walked into what they think is a room, and it's actually an elevator.
Yeah, who knows if it's for the first time or not, but they're going down.
Together.
Yep.
In each other's arms. I don't think that was necessary. That's an overreaction to the lift.
Well, but they don't know it's a lift. So they're worried about what else might happen.
Is it more of a protective embrace than a terrified one?
Yeah, possibly. The door's open, and who are they greeted by?
My notes say Brown, so I'm going to guess it's Adams.
Dr. Adams himself, who welcomes them to Devil's Island.
Yes, and at this point Noel insists he call her Helen.
Yeah, there's I've mentioned Chevy Chase already. Well, I've mentioned Fletch, so I'll do it again. There's an almost a little bit where there's a doctor scene.
Right.
And that's why I think she says, listen, let's just call me Helen, rather than...
All the confusion, yeah.
Yeah, spies like us. Most people know what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. But a little bit of near slapstick.
Yes. And despite what I said earlier on, Kirk is told that he can keep his weapon, as long as he keeps it out of sight. Now, this is a little bit lax. It doesn't matter how much you trust the
Well, I think I'm trying to put him at ease.
No, but that's not the point, because someone there, one of the prisoners, could take your weapon from you. So it's not about...
From Kirk's point of view, he might be concerned.
Yeah.
But I think from Adam's point of view, he is trying to lull Kirk into a false sense of security here.
Yeah. We'll go to his office, I believe. I think it is. We're not sure.
Sure.
He pours some drinks, ready for a toast at getting some visitors. Obviously, they don't come across them very often.
No, it seems like a very small amount of excitement to need a toast.
Yeah. So he had the good news about the weapons and the alcohol here, but he's got some bad news.
Well, he can't get through to the Enterprise from here.
Why not?
Because the shields are up and it's underground.
Yeah. However, he is able to open them to allow Kirk to speak with Spock.
Very briefly.
Yeah, he just confirms he's arrived and everything's okay so far.
I'm surprised they don't make an arrangement to check in at specific times, but it might be they've already done that before.
Yeah, because I think later on they mention about the 4 hours. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, at this, we have a woman enter. What was her name?
Lefty.
Yeah, I just call her Weird Eye Zombie Girl.
That's rude.
Why?
You're hurting her feelings. Imagine she heard you saying that.
Yeah, she's not a girl, is she? She's quite old.
She's not a zombie. Her
Yeah,
eyes are fine.
No, one's round. One's
She's got astigmatism. It's not.
No, I think it's to do with.
Embarrassed about.
No, I'm not saying
we all look different.
We do. I'm not saying she's embarrassed, but I think she's been shot.
You're going to point it out.
I think she's been shot in the face with the laser, the beam. I couldn't help it. As soon as I looked at her, I thought, your eyes are different.
She might have an eye infection.
The character or the actress?
Either.
Well,
It's very method acting. She's got herself an eye infection. No, I didn't notice anything particularly egregious about her eyes.
No, I didn't. They're not bad. They're just different. And
From each other.
And they're obvious, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's been done with makeup to try and make her look more
interesting.
Vacant. No, not
vacant.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. She certainly has an air of automaton.
You can tell me later on. I apologise if she's listening and she's still alive and she actually has got weird eyes.
That would be unfortunate. Or anyone else who has eyes like that that's listening and thinks you're mocking them.
I'm not mocking anyone.
Except for her.
No, it's not even. I'm just pointing out they're a bit weird.
No, you're pointing out that you're going to call her weird-eyed zombie girl.
Yeah, the character, not her in real life.
Okay.
I'm sure she's not a zombie in real life, unless she's dead, in which case she
could be a zombie.
She could be a zombie, yeah.
That would be interesting.
Let's just move on from this.
You started it.
No, I didn't. She is... okay, tell me about her.
She's a former patient who has stayed on as a therapist and loves her new life.
No chance would that be allowed. You let former inmates...
It's perfectly standard behaviour. Quite often you have former prisoners who go back to a prison to explain their rehabilitation. And
Yeah, they don't work. They're not employed. They're invited in as guest speakers.
Yeah.
They don't go from being in the cell to the office and being paid.
This is an example of how successful the treatment is, that she's so cured she can work as a prison officer.
Apparently, yeah, she states out of the blue that she loves her work, and Kirk is then invited to question her.
Before you came here,
I was another person. Malignant, hateful.
may I ask what crime you committed?
Does it matter? That person no longer exists.
Part of our cure, if you will, Captain, is to bury the past. Why should a person go on living with unbearable memories if there's no necessity?
Well, I feel quite sure that you'd concur with me in that, Dr. Helen.
The shifting of memory patterns is basic to psychotherapy.
Yes. And now to the toast. You'll forgive us, Lefty. There you are, Captain. To all mankind, may we never find space so vast, planets so cold, heart and mind so empty that we cannot fill them with love and warmth.
And this we fade out on Letty, Weird Eye, Zombie Girl's vacant stare.
Yeah, I think this is the first example of Noel or Helen rationalising. So Adams has said something. Adams, I think, might be an idol of hers, and certainly in her line of work and her specialism. So when he says, I'm sure you'll agree, I think she would be horrified at the idea of disagreeing. So she finds a way to make it fit with what she believes.
I agree, but it's unprofessional, and Kirk can't be trusting her. He's bringing her down there.
I don't think it's a conscious thing. I think that's a sub. Because in her mind this is the expert. Whatever he says in her line must be right. So
But still, it's not.
She's not
acceptable.
entitled. She doesn't feel entitled to substitute her opinion for his.
Yeah.
We get a bit of a time skip here.
Yeah, I think they take a tour of the place, and Kirk spots something he wants to know more about. And Dr. Adams is happy to admit that it was what?
Failed experiment.
Yeah, just a minor. We all make mistakes. And for some reason, Noel again tries to dissuade Kirk from interfering.
So I think she assumes that Adams would be unhappy to have a failed experiment investigated, so she tries to move things along.
She should remember who pays her wages.
Kirk doesn't pay her wages.
Yeah, but he's responsible for them. He can sack her.
Yeah, I don't think he does the books and stuff.
Well, still, if he wants her off the ship, she'll be off the ship.
I wonder who does do the books. I think that would be Uhura, maybe Sulu. I can see Sulu doing it.
Maybe not someone on the actual. I mean, you don't need books on the ship. You'll have someone doing the books before.
Well, someone must log the hours. There must be someone. Maybe it's Rand. Someone who must take track of who's worked what hours. Or maybe there's lots of yeomans who do it for department by department.
Yeah, or maybe it's automatically done. Maybe you check in, check out yourself. But I suppose you still need someone to collate them and make sure they tally up.
To be fair, though, I don't think any of them get paid. They've moved past currency.
Yeah. But it's not about being paid, it's about how many hours you have to do.
Fulfillment. They work for fulfillment.
No, but you still want your downtime.
That's true. Yeah, you might get hours in lieu, I suppose.
Listen, this is a very long podcast already. I think we should crack on here.
Workplace economics. Let's move on. It's not even interesting.
Kirk has to pull rank at this point, I think. Adams doesn't seem bothered about the whole thing and happily agrees to discussing the experiment and what he's been doing here.
Meanwhile,
in sickbay,
on the Enterprise, Van Gelder says he's not a criminal and does not need the Neural Neutralizer.
Yeah, he's not just saying it, he's shouting this. He's
Well, that's how he speaks, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, so far, yeah. Which Spock is immediately intrigued about and asks for an explanation.
He doesn't just ask, he gets really aggressive. It's almost like he's trying to respond like for like with Van Gelder's eccentric outbursts. But Van Gelder does not respond well to that approach.
No, well, he does his best and talks of a device in a room with a control pane and a light.
There are 4 lights. That's a Next Generation reference. He shouts in agony, though, at this point when he tries to get to the nub of it and is sedated once again.
He is. If I was Spock, I'd be saying, McCoy, come on, he's about to talk, and as soon as he opens his mouth, you're knocking him out. What's going on here?
Convenient, eh?
Yeah. Back down in Tantalus at the lab, the treatment room.
We find out that this is the Neural Neutralizer.
Yes, Kirk is in a viewing area as Adams tries to play things down whilst explaining that the machine only relaxes the mind and the brainwaves. And
it doesn't work anyway, and they're just using it in case it works. I think even Kirk, he's quite bright, but even a less intelligent captain would immediately say, hang on. And I think we see this registering for Kirk.
Yeah. I mean, there's a patient sitting there already in a catatonic state.
Yeah, something's going on here. They're telling him this is useless. It doesn't work. It's a failed experiment, but they're still using it.
Well, he asks this very obvious question. Why, if it doesn't work?
Gets a very inadequate response.
What's that?
They use it out of hope that it might work for the worst patients.
Yeah, that's garbage.
Utter garbage.
Yep. So
I would say something stronger if it wasn't a family podcast.
I think
Which you've taken it right to the edge of earlier.
Listen. And again, the unprofessional Noel takes it upon herself to defend Adams before they start to leave. But Kirk asks the lab guy how it works, and he responds in a zombie tone himself. Basically, it's quite straightforward, this, isn't it? There's on-off and intensity.
Yes. Well, from his point of view, that's how it works. That's not how it works, it's how it's operated.
Sure.
Noel assures Kirk that Adams won't have created a chamber of horrors. That's just based on her own assumption.
Yeah, and Adams remarks that Kirk reminds him of an ancient skeptic who demands all the wisdom in the world. Not really, he's saying, what's going on here? That's not an ancient skeptic demanding wisdom.
He's just sending a squirrel out here to distract people. It's not a reasonable thing to suggest at all.
Yeah.
Kirk is very much on a plausible line of investigation.
He asks about Van Gelder, and Adams admits that it happened right here, but it was his own fault.
Yeah, he set it to full volume or maximum levels without anyone there to help him.
Again, that seems unlikely.
Especially as it doesn't work.
Yeah. They leave and Kirk thanks the technician chap, but gets no response.
He's blanked completely.
And when he is gone, we see that the level of the neutralizer is raised, and the lab guy tells the patient he will forget everything that he has heard, and that the harder he tries to remember, the more terrible the pain will be.
Yeah, so we'll come back to this at the end, but this scene didn't work for me and I really disliked it.
Why?
Well, I said I'd come back to it at the end. I suppose I could tell you now. I think...
No, come back to it at the end.
You want to... Okay.
Yeah, come back to it at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Hold it in your mind.
Well,
this scene.
Right,
this scene, hold it.
Everyone, hold that in your mind.
I could just tell you now.
Okay.
Just tell you. It's not done in a way that there's any doubt. So they could have done a much better job for me of playing up Adams as a good guy and a paragon of the field. You've got Noel rationalising for him when it would have been better if he was saying things that were sensible and it was less contrived for her to agree with him. They could have done it in a way where you had doubt who the good guy was here and who the bad guy was, rather than making it obvious, oh, these guys are nasty, look how creepy. And you could have done it a bit more subtle. You had Lefty, was a bit more subtle, the fact that she was a bit of an automaton. This guy here is far too obvious, the guy operating the machine, that he is a bad guy, and then you get the bad guy speech. Yeah. At the end of the scene, and we've got Adam's ridiculous explanations that make it obvious that he is not on the level either. If they'd done it a bit more subtly and left a bit of ambiguity as to who out of him and Van Gelder was really the one to root for here, or the one who's giving them the right information, then it maybe would have made the episode a bit more compelling for a bit longer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think because that's the thing. He's not some crazed mad scientist looking to take over the world for his own personal gains.
Well, we don't know. We never get his motivations.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So there is an ambiguity there. We're not. I mean, we'll get to this at the end. No, I mean, I was taking that he had, certainly at the start, he would have decent intentions, and things have went wrong, but he's decided to progress with the enemy, and maybe the powers went to his head, but
the thrill of this, how he can use this technology.
Yeah. So there was an open goal there, and they missed.
Yeah, and they've set it up nicely as well. That's the frustration.
Mm-hmm.
They've done the hard bit. They've done all the intro, and they've taken you 20 minutes into the episode, and they've got a great opportunity. And then it's just like, oh no, we'll just make it clear these are the bad guys.
Yeah.
Take out any kind of doubt.
Anyway, we're back at sick bay on the Enterprise. Spock is with McCoy and communicates with Kirk, who tells him he is with Adams.
Yeah, we kind of jump between the two locations, and Spock obviously wants to speak privately to Kirk, but doesn't want to say that he wants to speak privately to Kirk, but he doesn't do a good job of hiding it. No,
it's a little awkward, but he tells of Van Gelder's mention of the neutralizer, and Kirk confirms he knows about the mistake Van Gelder made and asks if he has anything else.
In his arrogance, we see Adams agree just to leave, knowing that Spock wants to speak privately without making them make a play here.
Yeah, he says he's off to check in with a member of staff. So with Adams away, Spock tells of Van Gelder's agitation and his warning that they are in danger.
At this, Dr. Knoll jumps into the conversation.
She's outraged.
This is a bit of insubordinate. In fact, she's way out of line here. And this is where it becomes clear that she is just an Adams fangirl and she's not actually using the rational part of her mind here to analyse the situation.
Yeah, I think she claims that what has been said to be nonsense, and unfortunately, Kirk uses this against McCoy.
Yeah, because McCoy assigned her.
Yeah.
Quite right too. But yes, Kirk makes the point that the specialist here says that what you're saying is not realistic. So basically he takes her outburst and puts it into the terms that she should have used.
Yeah, is this at the point where she talks about Van Gelder essentially having brain damage?
Yes.
And it's therefore to be expected that he'll be rambling and be confused.
Yeah, Spock's a bit confused as to why she's even on this call.
So it's not that she's just defending Adam's work. She is now taking it further. Like there's a guy here who's making claims, and I don't understand why
she's not qualified to make these.
Yeah, she's not even with Van Gelder. She hasn't assessed the patient as it were.
I think she's exposing here a lack of training, a lack of experience. So I think an older and more experienced doctor who felt the way that she did would find a better way to make the points that she's making. Yeah. I think she's exposing the fact that she's young and she's inexperienced and she's acting emotionally, and I think that fits quite well with what explanation we've had for this character up to this point. She is a fairly new sort of green young officer who doesn't have the grounding or the experience, as I said, to play this differently. And
all the more, but I'm saying that's all the more reason to just keep your mouth shut and don't be throwing your opinion. If you know you're inexperienced in green, be quiet, learn, listen.
She should be, and I think the fact that they've had this earlier entanglement, her and Kirk, makes it difficult for him, or he's finding it difficult to just say to her, "Look, shut up, back down for a minute. You're out of line. We'll deal with this."
Yeah. McCoy tells him that they still have doubts before Kirk advises that they're going to spend the night on the colony and will check in every 4 hours. How does he think he's going to do this? I suppose if you get permission from Adams to raise or lower the shields for a moment.
This is not good news for Van Gelder. He's very unhappy at the suggestion.
Yes, he is enraged and he panics, I think.
Yeah, he says that the captain must not stay on the surface. I think Spock's hung up by now. The call's over. So it's just McCoy and Spock dealing with Van Gelder.
I think there's a threat of being hypoed.
Yes, and at this point, though, he's a bit more lucid. He's able to say, "No, don't sedate me. I'm trying to make an important point here. I'm trying to tell you something that's vital."
He calms down enough to warn of Adams, I like this, who will destroy Kirk with death.
Yes. Oh, that. I like the fact that he'll destroy him. What? I don't understand. With death. Oh! That's what you meant by
destroy.
Surely you should have said destroy his mind, or, destroy his memories or something like that. That would have been a more realistic. Maybe you can't say that word because of the pain.
Perhaps. We have a Spock log.
That's exactly what I've written in my Spock log.
Okay.
That's not that funny.
And we find out that he is going to use an ancient Vulcan technique to probe Van Gelder, or probe his mind.
There's a reason why we get all this, but we'll save this one for the end.
Well, okay, because I was going to say, is this the first time of a recurring thing?
Yes.
And in the very first episode, I was reeling off the little knowledge I knew. But as soon as I heard this, I thought to myself, mind meld.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And it's interesting because you would think, okay, Vulcan culture, you've got the nerve pinch, you've got the mind meld, and the way that these are introduced into the story, obviously we've got the nerve pinch was just Leonard Nimoy came up with it while they're filming, and there's a good reason or a good story behind the mind meld, but we'll come to that in the trivia section. In sick bay, Spock is a little bit hesitant to employ this technique because it is really sort of intimate for Vulcans. He's exposing himself as well as gaining knowledge.
Yeah, and McCoy has to convince him to deploy it due to the urgency and the danger that their captain is going to face.
McCoy could not care less about his private, intimate Vulcan feelings, which he doesn't express, because the man has information that could affect the captain's well-being. So you just get over your little stigma here, Spock, and deploy your skills.
He eventually agrees, but warns Van Gelder of the dangers to himself. He, however, demands that he do it so that he can explain all the things to him.
Yeah, he's much more calm once Spock gets into this process.
Yeah, he holds him around the jaw and the forehead before starting to whisper. And even though he'd previously said it's not hypnotism, but it's a hypnotic style, which allows their minds to share thoughts. Is that how?
Become one.
Yeah.
Later on, they'll use the phrases that become more common, like, you know, my mind to your mind, my thoughts to your thoughts, and that sort of thing. But he doesn't use these iconic phrases just yet.
Yeah, that could be embarrassing. Van Gelder says, "Oh, wait, that's you, dirty boy." Spock, no, never mind that. Never mind that. Concentrate on the task in hand.
Little teenage Spock getting bullied. Like there's a Harry Potter one. There's like folk will know the reference when
I'm sure
there's mind sharing there.
I'm sure.
In Noel's quarters, Kirk arrives and he gets trolled quite badly by Noel.
What happens?
She's like, "Oh yeah, you're coming round in the middle of the night to my quarters. Oh yeah,
But he gets straight to the point. I think he ignores this. He wants their opinion on the inmates that they saw.
Well, I think she said it almost in a hopeful way, and he's like, "No, stop."
Yeah. And she again defends Adam, even after what she's seen here. She defends him and his methods.
This is the point. She quite flat out says here, people should not question a man like Tristan Adams.
Nonsense.
Which is, I think, the sort of apex of her issues. I think Kirk now starts to work on breaking that down. Not overtly, but I think through his actions.
Yeah, he doesn't take any of this and demands that she join him in the treatment room where he can see the machine at work.
Up on the ship, Spock is making some progress with his mind meld.
What is our name? Who are we?
We are Simon Van Gelder.
Dr. Adams. The Neural Neutralizer. What did he do to us?
He can reshape any mind he chooses. He used it to erase our memories, put his own thoughts there. He was surprised it took so much power. We fought him, remember? But we grew so tired. Our minds so blank, so open, that any thought he placed there became our thoughts. Our minds so empty, like a sponge, needing thoughts, begging, empty. Loneliness, so lonely to be sitting there empty. Wanting any word from him. Love. Hate. Live. Die. Such agony to be empty.
We don't find out just now, but is this I would guess this is the type of thing, like maybe like in the Stranger Things, where does it take it out of Spock? Does he have to recover?
Yes, definitely does.
Okay.
And the more difficult the subject, the more energy it requires from him. This is quite an important point that Van Gelder makes here. We'll come back to this at the end of the episode. He talks about when his mind is empty here. Before he gets the instructions, it's agonising, it's almost unsurvivable until he gets some form of command to replace the emptiness. So that's an important point that the story will come back around to.
Back down in the treatment room, Kirk asks Noelle in a very unvarnished manner if the machine can be handled with reasonable safety. She says yes, and that she could tell if the beam was harming him or not. Again, I'm not trusting her.
She uses the phrase, "I know my profession."
But this is something that's been developed down here. She has no experience of using this machine.
It's got two knobs.
Still, she doesn't know how people react to it.
Yeah, but I think Kirk's ascertained that she does know her stuff. Maybe during the tour.
But she doesn't
when we
know
didn't
stuff
see it.
about this machine that's entirely new. She's never used it or handled it
But
before.
she knows the theory behind it.
Away you go. Anyway.
They run a test, which works. Kirk doesn't realise that he's been out of it for a few seconds. And quite rightly, though, he thinks maybe he just didn't pay enough attention. We'll do a different test.
Yeah, so she suggests that he is hungry.
Yes, and that also works, but again, he thinks that's not quite scientific enough. Let's do another one. And she doesn't do very well with this one.
What does she do?
She tries to replace his memory of their encounter at the Christmas party that obviously ended awkwardly with a happier ending where he takes her back to his room and she protests her modesty and what will people think, and then when he says, would you like me to lie to you, she says, no, I prefer your honesty, and then gets on with it anyway.
And we see this.
It's kind of like a dream
Yeah,
state, but I think what's actually happened is she's describing this
of course.
scenario to Kirk and replacing his memory of the event with this one.
We fade out of this to Kirk's beaming
Yes, and
face.
before she can complete this scenario, she is hauled away from the controls.
Grabbed by a goon.
Yes, and Adams is there, and he takes over as the instructor.
Yeah, the intensity is turned up, and he tells him that he loves Noelle.
Yeah, it's a strange one though. So he tells Kirk he loves Helen, but she's gone. She's gone, and this agonises him. But he doesn't actually make her go anywhere. She's still there. He then gets Kirk to drop his phaser, which he tries to resist but does. Then to drop his communicator, but he fights back. He uses the communicator, although it doesn't work. He tries to contact the Enterprise, and Adams has to turn the setting to a higher level.
And we cut to some time later in Kirk's quarters, where he awakes with Noel leaning over, tending to him.
Yeah, this I don't get. Why has Adams put them in together when he's set it up for Kirk to be in agony without her? He's letting him see that she's fine and she's there with him. He's obviously also not done anything to her that we're aware of.
Yeah, well, we didn't really mention that. He says that he tells Kirk that he would do anything for her.
Yes.
That he would lie, he would cheat, he would sacrifice everything. So maybe this is a sort of longer term goal here.
Maybe he thinks a few sessions he'll build this up. So
Yeah.
this is just stage one, and eventually is going to remove her and cause issues.
He pulls. Now, this again reminds me a little bit of Kirk and the Enemy Within.
Which one?
The bad one. See, he pulls her closer, claiming that he's loved her for years, and she tries to pull back and begs him to remember that these feelings were in fact just implanted by Adams.
Yeah. And whether they were or not, though, loving someone for years doesn't compel you to act on it.
No, it does not. It's again, we're seeing that when it comes down to it, at the core, Kirk is a bit grabby, a bit.
Yeah, he feels entitled because he loves her to make physical approaches to her and not really react to her response.
Yeah, it's very, we mentioned earlier on, James Bond, and we see that actually later in this episode, where he thinks it's okay to grab and kiss without discussing it first.
Yeah, or looking for signals of any kind. I love you, therefore I'm entitled to take this action. But she stops him.
Yeah, it appears to work, as he stutters out that he remembers before moving menacingly towards her.
We do. This is quite ambiguous here, so we get this sort of close-up of him almost smiling and then moving in her direction, and you think, oh...
And she looks scared.
Yes.
Because she's heard, no doubt, Rand must have told her, girly chat on board, that when he got a drink in him and he wasn't, he became a bit lecherous, a bit rapey.
Interestingly, in the first version of this script, it was meant to be Rand that came down to the surface, and it was because they don't want this sort of relationship between Kirk and Rand that they changed it, which was a good decision. Anyway.
He's not going for her.
No, he's going to this grate in the Wallace, or duct.
Yeah, it's for air conditioning. He opens it up, the hatch, and he comes up with a plan for her to get in and shut down the main power supply.
I like the fact that he says to her, right, have you had the training? She says, no. He says, on you go.
This is one I mentioned earlier on. I really enjoyed her reaction as well. So I think he asks her if she's any experience of hyper powered circuits, and she responds with a very sort of a deadpan contempt. She's like, no, it's not. You're
I'm a
fool.
doctor.
Of course I'm not. But he shoves her in the vent anyway. And in fairness,
She does say, I'd rather try it than just sit here and wait.
Yeah.
But the problem is that if she touches the wrong cable, she'll die.
Yeah, I think he's saying that as he pushes her in. It's like, oh, wait a second. I didn't realise that.
As she disappears into the vents, men come for Kirk.
Yes,
Lackeys.
to take him back for another treatment, and that's where we are. From the observation room, Adams advises Kirk not to fight it before starting the procedure on him again.
You believe in me completely.
I believe in you.
You trust me completely.
I trust you.
Excellent, Captain. I compliment you. Do you know Dr. Van Gelder was down on his hands and knees, sobbing at this point? It's so gratifying. I'm so fortunate to have had a couple of excellent specimens to work with. I've learned a great deal.
Woman doctor. She's gone, Dr. Adams.
Notify security once, Lefty. Where is she, Captain?
I don't know.
Where is Heather? And with what instructions?
I don't know.
Kirk is showing remarkable resilience against this beam, so he's getting turned up and turned up and turned up. Meanwhile, Spock is trying to get the transporters working, or some sort of way to get to the surface, because he's talking to the chief in the transporter room as Helen makes her way through the ducts.
Yes, she seems to have some trouble with the off switch, because she doesn't initially...
Yeah, I don't know. She doesn't know which off switch is she's found, but the first one she comes to on a sort of lever doesn't work, and then
So then she has to hide. She hears some goons coming.
yes, so she gets in behind a sort of bulkhead, and they go by, and she comes back and finds what appears to be the right switch,
The massive...
off switch, which she reaches up with two hands and pulls down just as the neural neutralizer is about to break through on Kirk.
Yes, so this allows Kirk, it buys him a little bit of time. He wakes up, he's on the ground, but he sort of wakes up, or he comes round a little bit more. However, these goons return, they grab Noelle and they throw her to the ground before turning the switch back on. But Kirk's, as this is happening, he's got enough strength to knock out Adams and his henchmen.
Yes, and escape from the room.
But things take a shocking turn in the power room.
Yes, so Helen faints, sort of weakness, she's sort of lying there, and as the security guard goes to her, she knocks him into the wrong cable that Kirk told her about, killing him.
Yes, sure.
And shorting out the power.
Mm-hmm.
And she escapes through the ducts as Spock beams in, the chief obviously having immediately told him the shield was down.
Yes, and I think he orders a couple of security guys to follow behind him.
Yes.
So, we're still in the power room.
Yes, Spock arrives, but Noel has just left.
With a phaser.
She has, yes,
Yep.
from the security guy. Spock puts the power back on.
Which immediately starts the machine on high intensity, and at this time it's now aimed at Adams, who's lying on
Yes.
the floor.
I'm not sure where the other goon that got knocked out is, but he's no longer in that room.
Is he not?
Well, I don't think so.
Maybe you just don't see him. Maybe he's on the floor out of
Could
shot.
be. Anyway, Spock specifically turns off the shield, so although the power's on, the shield is down, and that will allow more people to come from the Enterprise.
Correct. We're back at Kirk's quarters now.
I think it's, well, the room that Helen and Kirk were in, so they both arrive back at the same time.
Well, yeah. They do. She is shouting on her captain, and as soon as she comes through the hatch, he abuses his position and apparent memory implant to grab and passionately kiss her.
Yeah, I think either he is consciously taking advantage of the fact that he'll get away with this by saying it's to do with the memory switch,
I think he is.
or he is genuinely overpowered by the treatment he's had, and he's weak, and he's in a weakened mental state, can't resist the urge.
Nope.
But it's very inappropriate, regardless of whether he thinks he loves her or not.
She even tells him it isn't the right time, as Adams did this to him. Just as Spock enters, and perhaps knowing Kirk better, he sarcastically repeats, "Oh, Dr. Adams, yeah." I think because what we hear is...
Yeah, I think Spock knows that Kirk's at it here.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the corridors, we see lots of people from the Enterprise have arrived to lock down the facility.
Yeah, and Spock and Kirk, I'm not sure if Noel's there as well, yeah. They enter and turn off the machine. McCoy, he's also there?
He's come down and they find Adams has died.
Yes, as confirmed by McCoy.
It's what Van Gelder was saying earlier. The mind had been emptied and with nothing to replace.
Well, okay, yeah, but we need to discuss this, because after McCoy confirms that he's dead, Noel says that the machine wasn't on a high enough setting to kill him. And Kirk notes that he was alone and imagines what it must have been like to have your mind emptied by it without even a tormentor for company. So explain what's happened, or what you think's happened here.
So what she's saying is it wasn't on... If it had been up to maximum, it would have, by brute force, just fried his brain. So it didn't do that. But what it did do is it worked to the extent it wiped his memory, and then it wasn't replaced by anything. So his body obviously wasn't able to cope with that emptiness.
I'm not sure if your body would...
I don't know. Well, if your brain's controlling your functions and your brain's wiped, possibly to the extent that it's wiped of its basic functions. Like, so it's all his memories are gone.
Okay.
And then it loses the power to control blood flow, whatever
You
else.
don't need your memory.
I'm only guessing. It was obviously something to do with his brain function.
Yeah.
They talk about loneliness killing him, but I think there's a bit of assumption in there as well.
Yeah.
The machine killed him.
And apparently Noel now understands.
Yeah, well, does she?
No.
She just says that.
Yeah, she's trying to keep her job.
Up on the bridge,
Kirk enters and it appears to me like McCoy, Spock and Uhura are slightly wary of him. They're not sure if he has...
Well, he's had his mind played with.
Mm-hmm. And he's told of a message from Van Gelder and Tantalus. What's the message?
The neural neutralizer has been dismantled, but what it suggests is that Van Gelder is now cured and in charge. Or either, better still, not cured and in charge. Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
Nurse, bring it.
And somebody's, don't worry about it, he always does that, he's fine, yeah.
A minor bit of trivia, Deep Space Nine set about 80 odd years after this, he's still in charge of the Tantalus penal colony.
Very good.
Supplies are sent to Dr. Van Gelder.
He deserves it. Kirk sits in his chair and McCoy states that it's hard to believe that a man can die of loneliness. How does he respond?
Well, Kirk says not when you felt it, not when you sat in that chair and you know what it feels like to need something substituted.
And at this point there's a brief silence, there's a pause, and I think they're all still concerned that something isn't quite right with Kirk until
he gives his standard order to...
Yeah, he breaks into a big smile and instructs him to...
A big smile as if he was joking. I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
His hair, yeah. Oh, come on, I thought you were still...
Death of loneliness.
Yeah, and they head off in Warp 1 or something like that.
On to the, I think Warp 2. On to the next mission.
Good, yeah. So, there we have it. We're running quite late here.
Let's zoom through some things. Thoughts, first of all.
Thoughts, I said at the start, it was adequate. I thought it took a lot from what Little Girls Are Made Of, rehashed it a bit, and coming so quickly, even if it was filmed out of order, we're still talking the same season. So I thought a little bit lazy, didn't necessarily add too much to the concept. It was okay.
Introduction of the Mind Meld makes it an important episode. I think the couple of morals are don't believe everything your heroes tell you, and don't have privately run prisons.
Yep, I thought the moral was don't shoot laser beams at people's brains because it might damage them and make them go a bit mad.
Maybe.
And give them weird eyes.
I think the guess is that Spock's intervention has cured Van Gelder, so did they get him to go in and do everybody else in the asylum? Did they get him to do to do Kirk?
But how they didn't discuss reversing it. I mean, with Kirk, they maybe got him in time before the permanent damage had been done. But
maybe it's just repairing the pathways. Although he's lost the memories, he's now able to function. He's got the pain part of it taken away. Who knows? We're only able to guess. I quite like Dr. Knoll as a character.
Yes, I don't know if you want to spoil it. Is that her only episode? I'd like to see more of her.
Yeah, it's her only episode. You can see more of her in other films.
Yeah, I've actually have. Well, we can get to that.
The message from this maybe about power corrupting, I guess, similar to what we had in Where No Man's Gone before. Adams reminded me a little bit of the warden from Shawshank,
Yeah.
running his facility to his own.
Well, it's a cliche
rules.
of the authoritarian figure who...
Yeah.
Okay, let's get on with some character actor trivia.
Original air date, November the 3rd, 1966. Directed by Vincent Mccready. Don't need to say anything about him. We saw him last week when we talked about Miri. Episode was written by Shimon Winselberg using the pen name S. Bar David. He also contributed episodes to Lost in Space, Planet of the Apes, and Law and Order, amongst many others. This was the first of his 2 Star Trek episodes, and he died in 2004 at the age of 80.
Good run.
James Gregory played Dr. Adams. This is his only
Coach
appearance
Rizzo.
in Star Trek. Before his death in 2002 at the age of 90, he appeared in many movies and TV shows, including MASH, Ironside, and The Manchurian Candidate. But the parts I know you, Gerry, will be most excited about were his 2 episodes of Columbo,
Coach Rizzo.
including the season 2 episode, The Most Crucial Game, where he played
Coach Rizzo.
and appeared alongside many of the 1972 LA Lakers. Morgan Woodward played Dr. Simon Van Gelder in the first of his 2 Star Trek appearances.
Remember, if you know who I think he looks like from a...
Phone in 0800,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
No prizes,
1066.
no t-shirts.
He credits the appearance in this episode with breaking him out of a sort of rut of typecast roles in westerns. He also appeared in shows like Knight Rider, The A-Team, TJ Hooker, and The X-Files, to name just a few. And he died not that long ago in 2019 at the remarkable age of 93.
Well, you say remarkable. Kirk Douglas has sort of ruined it for everyone else. Now it's like, okay, well, 93.
He had access to the Fountain of Youth, didn't he? Stem cells or something. Mariana Hill was Dr. Helen Noel. She is still alive. You'll be glad to know. You can look her up. She only appeared in this episode of Star Trek. Played, though, you might remember, Deanna Corleone in The Godfather Part 2. And also appeared in shows like Remington Steele, Mission Impossible, and the 60s Batman series.
I would like to mention yet they've a cult movie. It's very weird, and it's certainly one for the adults. I think it's called The Baby or Baby.
Okay.
Where there's it's a weird family. It's a 70s movie. She plays part of this creepy family who have a brother. There's a mother, I think, 2 daughters. She's one of the daughters. They have a brother who's a fully grown man who acts and talks and wears a nappy, and they treat him like a baby. He's not
You'd
not
seen
developed
this before you heard of her.
Yes, yeah. I didn't know that who it was until I looked into it. And then they get someone to come in, a nanny, and it's a bit of a horror, a bit of a thriller. Very weird. I'm not necessarily recommending it, but
If that's your sort of thing.
if that's your sort of thing, it's worth a watch. Anyway, that's what I know about her.
Suzanne Wassen played Lefty, which is a play on sort of mind-washing treatment, because Lethe was the Greek spirit of forgetfulness, also one of the rivers in the underworld in Greek mythology. Wassen also appeared in shows including Heart to Heart, The A-Team, and Stingray. She didn't really appear in Stingray. Don't appear in Stingray, but she did one of the voices. She's also still alive, as far as we know. A couple of other minor Columbo connections, which you might appreciate. John Hugh McKnight played one of the guards in the penal colony. He would go on to play a club patron in the unforgettable 5th season Columbo mystery. Now you see him with Jack Cassidy. Walt Davis was another Tantalus resident. He would go on to appear with future Star Trek captain Kate Mulgrew in a 1979 episode of Mrs. Columbo. And finally, Ed Mccready, who I know you missed from last week.
No, Ian, I think I pulled you up for missing him last week.
Well, you didn't recognise him, is what I'm trying to make
I
out
did,
here.
I was waiting for you, and I forgot. Carry on.
He was in Miri, and he would go on to appear in 3 further Star Trek episodes, but he showed up in 6 Columbos between 1974 and 1995. Non-people-based trivia. Morgan Woodward, well, it's people-based, but it's not about his bio. He found the part of Van Gelder, Simon Van Gelder, so intense, he had to go home and rest for 4 days after filming ended. I felt that after watching him and hearing some of those clips that we played.
Yep.
A few more Greek mythology references in the episode apart from Lethe, including Tantalus itself, which is a Greek connection. The title of the episode also uses an episode title in Columbo, of course, you'll remember.
I do.
It's a direct quote from Macbeth by William Shakespeare, the Scottish play.
A fairly poor Columbo episode.
Well, it was, yeah. I teased earlier that I would give you the explanation for the mind meld, so it's part of this next bit of trivia. NBC's response to the original script is recorded in the book The Making of Star Trek, and it includes a request that Van Gelder find a new way to subdue the crewmen in the transport room, which we saw him use the chop, because a knee to the face is too brutal. Fair enough. There was originally a plan to have Van Gelder hypnotised. So they had a few concerns with this. Firstly, it had to be done off-screen to avoid hypnotising the viewers. In addition, it must be done by a doctor and not by Mr. Spock, unless Spock could be shown to have the necessary expertise to perform the procedure. So obviously to get around that, they've created this Vulcan tradition that Spock could be shown to be expert in to allow Spock to carry out this process.
And he actually says then, that was there a sneaky little reference, he says, this isn't hypnotism.
Yes. There was a request not to show any injections, which is why this air hiss thing was preferred, and they deleted the word damned on one occasion.
Damn it.
I think Rand said it, but she was obviously written out or replaced with Noel. Looking at the international titles, we're getting to the end, you'll be glad to hear. But we've got a few this week because there's a lot of variants.
Are you talking to me or the listeners?
You.
Okay.
The listeners love it. They want me to go on forever. The French translators went with Les Voleurs d'Esprit, the robbers of the mind. The Italians went with Trasmissioni di Pensiero, transmissions of thought. The Germans, you'll be able to translate this one for yourself, very technically went with Der Zentralnervensystem Manipulator.
Yeah, well.
The manipulator of the
nervous system.
Central nervous system. Spaniards went with El Odio de la Mente, the hate of the mind, which doesn't make any sense.
No.
And our friends in Japan went way out on a limb.
Come on, let's
as we
hear
prefer them to do, with Akumato Karakita Kyojin, the lunatic from Devil's Island.
Yeah, yeah.
He does refer to it as Devil's Island, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks again to the Star Trek Concordance for that information. And next time we are looking at the 10th episode, but the first one that was produced for season 1, but after the pilots, the Cobramite Maneuver.
This is the first one.
It's the first one that they made.
After the pilot.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I could be wrong. I would expect a drop in quality, but...
You would be wrong. It's one of the best episodes.
Is it?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad.
And a phenomenal looking alien man.
Brilliant. Can't wait.
In the meantime, we've already told you about where our social media handles are, so get us there and we will speak to you during the week and we'll give you some more things to listen to in 7 days' time.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.